Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister-in-law and her family a luxury vacation? I travel a lot for work, so I have so many hotel and airline points it is crazy. This summer, I am taking my family to Disney World and we are going to stay at one of the resorts on the property. My sister-in-law and her family had a hard time during the pandemic, so I decided to do something nice and invite them along. My treat. I said I would pay for their flights, hotel, and park tickets. Everyone was excited until she started talking to my wife. Now, she is upset that we are staying at one of the resorts and they have to stay in Disney Springs. Apparently, I am being cheap by using points for their hotel, instead of just paying for them to stay at the same resort as us. My wife told her sister and brother-in-law to STFU and accept the gift, but they didn't. They told my in-laws that I was making their kids jealous by not letting them enjoy the same stuff as us. To be clear, the hotel I booked for them is very nice. It's just not the Grand Floridian. So I finally talked to them and gave them the choice of accepting my gift or not coming, since I could still cancel the reservations. They started yelling at me for being an a-hole and taking something away from their children. I had talked to them like adults, but when they started screaming, their kids heard them and found out that they might not be going. Now their kids are angry at their parents for possibly messing up their vacation, and now I'm the bigger a-hole for making them look bad in front of their kids. Am I the a-hole? Let me get this straight. You're gifting them airline tickets, park tickets, and a nice hotel, and they demand more? Cancel their tickets immediately. For their benefit too, so they drop this entitled idiocy forever. So the kids learn you get nothing if you're being an A, so they don't try to walk all over you in the future. Not the a-hole, that would be them. Poor kids. Heck, I'll take this amazing gift with endless gratitude. Disney Springs got 4.85 over 5 stars. I'll be so happy and grateful if anyone did this for me. Definitely an r/choosing beggar situation. OP should take the kids, leave ungrateful sister-in-law and brother-in-law behind. Your sister-in-law could have chosen this route. Your uncle is just amazing and is offering us this unforgettable trip. We will be staying at a different location but doing all the parks and activities together. This will give us a chance to have some time with just us as a family too. Aren't we lucky to have such generous people in our family? We are really so blessed. But alas, I want more. Based on what Opie wrote, it seems the kids did know how lucky they were and are angry at their parents for potentially messing this up. Sad that the kids are more mature than their parents. Just take the kids. Leave those entitled parents. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not putting my sister's wedding expenses on my credit card and humiliating her? I, 27 female, was the only person in my family to go to college and get out of poverty. My family is from a small town, and we struggled a lot growing up. I got out, but it's hard because I make good salary now and my family expects me to share it. I still have student loans and bills to pay, but they seem to think I'm rolling in money. I also bought an apartment in 2019, and when my parents found out, they called me selfish and wanted me to pay for their expenses. I have loaned money to my parents, about $800, and they forgot they borrowed money and claims I forgot that I gave it as a gift and said they didn't need to repay. My sister and I used to have a good relationship, but once I left for college and did better, our relationship got more strained. She got married, and I came back a few days before the wedding to help her set everything up. We went to the grocery store and she bought $1,700 worth of groceries as we were cooking it for the wedding. Her card was denied, and she tried a few but they were all denied. We stepped aside and she called a credit card company to find out she nearly maxed out her cards. She started to panic and checked her account and found out she has $200 left in her checking account. I told her to check her savings and she snapped back she didn't have any, and our mom checked her card and still had $600. So she said she would cover $600 and volunteered me for the other $1,100. I told them I didn't have the money. I did, but I don't think my sister would have the money to pay me back. My sister demanded to see proof that I had maxed out my credit cards and I didn't have any money in my checking. And I told her I don't have to give her proof, I just don't have the money. She started crying and yelling at me that I was looking down on her for being broke, and she knew I have the money. I'm just being stingy. My mom started on me too, telling me that people are staring and people are going to gossip about this. And I was humiliating my sister for making it seem like she couldn't even afford her own wedding. I had enough and walked out. I told them I'd had it with them, expecting me to pay for everything. I walked back to my parents' house, and my sister sent me a text saying I was no longer welcome to the wedding. I drove home without another word, and I'm wondering if I should have just put the groceries on my card to keep the peace. People are going to gossip about this, and I was humiliating my sister for making it seem like she couldn't even afford her own wedding. Shaking my head, she can't afford it. She did this herself. Not a holopy and stop playing ATM for the family. I'm still in awe at $1,700 worth of groceries. That sounds like a feast. Not a holopy. I've discovered that people who never really had money don't understand that you can't just spend willy-nilly when you're in a better financial situation. You still have to pay for housing, food, bills, insurance, savings, etc. You may do well now, but you need a safety net should anything happen and you can't work. You don't owe your family anything. There is always a way out of a bad financial situation if you're willing to research and do the work. I'm stuck at she had $1,700 in groceries in her cart and had no plan to pay for them. You can't convince me that she wasn't aware of her balance or how close to limit she was. She walked into that store, loaded those carts, fully expecting her sister to pay. She created a situation, brought on her own humiliation, and seeded a rumor mill. She should have been prepared with a budget and guaranteed payment before placing one item in her cart. Not a holopy. Your sister and her parents are a-holes. Not the a-hole. You didn't make it look like she can't afford her own wedding, because she actually can't afford her own wedding. Setting aside the weddings are already grossly overly expensive. It's clear she didn't plan, save, or budget well for this. None of which is something you're responsible for. If the family is just going to treat you like a piggy bank, then just removing yourself from the situation sounds like the best move. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pitch in money toward my sister-in-law's IVF treatments and telling her and my brother that their future children are not my responsibility? My brother Reed and sister-in-law Nora have always wanted children. However, they are unable to conceive naturally. Nora had multiple ovarian cysts and eventually needed to have both her ovaries removed as a teenager. Reed and Nora are in their early 30s and are very urgent about needing to try sooner than ever because they say they are approaching an age where IVF success rates start to decline. Because of Nora's past medical issues, I am told that she will need extra care and her round of treatments will be especially expensive, a little over $27,000. Reed and Nora already have $9,000 set aside in savings for IVF treatments. They've raised $1,000 from friends. The rest of the family is pitching in smaller amounts as well. My mother is giving $2,000. Nora's sister Lauren is giving $1,000. And her parents are giving $4,000, which leaves about $10,000 left. Their insurance will not help to cover it because they don't consider it a medically necessary procedure. Reed and Nora have also had difficulty qualifying for an IVF loan as they have poor credit. So now Reed and Nora are asking me to help because according to the loan advisor, I am allowed to take out the loan on Reed and Nora's behalf. $10,000 is a huge ask for me. And the fact that Reed and Nora have poor credits shows they already don't have a good track record of paying back loans. When I questioned why they didn't ask Lauren, they claimed they couldn't because she isn't single and childless like I am. They see it as me not having any dependents. My mother and parents-in-law don't have a lot of savings, and their early mentioned donations were already a huge gift for them. It takes a long time to correct a bad credit score, and it makes things much more difficult. And as harsh as it is to say, I don't want to take out thousands of dollars in a loan for a procedure that has a good chance of not even working. So I told Reed and Nora no, and that their future children are not my responsibility. I also wanted to put my foot down now, because next it's gonna be a private school tuition or a college fund, and that shouldn't be my responsibility just because I am currently single and childless. Nora was obviously disappointed but told me she respected my choice. Reed was angry. He told me that he would remember this for when I am ever in a time of need, so that I will know how it feels to have family turn their back on me. The rest of the family members have essentially told me, "We're not mad at you, just disappointed." Because Nora worried for years that she would never be able to have children or be a mother. They say Reed and Nora would be wonderful parents, and is it right that they can't conceive naturally, which I do agree with. However, I still stand by Nora and Reed's future children not being my responsibility. I don't think it's fair that I should delay or give up the possibility of starting my own family in order to finance Reed and Nora's. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. And as a mom, I wonder if they can afford having a child if they can't even take a 10K loan. I agree, but this is a bad take. It's not the same spending 27K in a single instance of treatment than spending the same amount over a year or two. I don't have 10K right now, nor can I take a loan for that amount, but my salary would be more than enough to sustain me and a child and even save a little over time. It's not a bad take, because you can qualify for the hypothetical loan, and this couple cannot. If they don't have $10 for the procedure and their credit is too poor to qualify for the loan, they can't afford a child. Yeah, it's not a bad take, especially for the first few years of the child's life where basically one parent is crippled if you're middle class or below, taking care of the child and not earning. Not to mention they're already struggling to keep their finances up without children. Not the a-hole. Oh hell no, you are not the a-hole. That is not your responsibility. I'm sorry they're struggling, but common sense would beg the question, if they cannot afford IVF, how could they afford a child? The treatment may not even be successful. In addition, being single and childless/child-free doesn't mean you don't have your own obligations and causes to which you'd want your money to go. Best of luck to you. Also, being single and childless/child-free doesn't mean brother/sister-in-law are entitled to OP financing their dream. It's a shame for anyone who wants children to have to deal with not being able to have them, but that doesn't mean OP is obligated to fund this procedure. If anyone, it should be her parents scraping the rest together to help their daughter. I'd hate to think the family is making this about OP having a snooty child-free attitude, or OP enforcing their convictions onto others. It's not about that at all, and just brings us back to OP not being obligated to fund this, regardless of his/her choice and lifestyle. Not a-hole. Never loan money or co-sign a note for people who can't get a loan on their own. There's a reason banks reject them. It's astounding to me that people are so brazen that you should put your financial stability at risk just because they want you to. That's nuts. Finally, maybe Reed and Nora should wrap their heads around the idea that they cannot afford IVF and should consider something radical, like adoption. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother it was a dumb decision to invite his new girlfriend over for our nephew's birthday, and I understand why our brother-in-law invited him? My 20 male brother Ron, 27 male, met his late girlfriend Linda when they were 16, and they started dating shortly after. To say the family adored her would be an understatement. Linda was beautiful, smart, and had an amazing sense of humor. She's been part of the family for so long that most of us don't remember a time without her. Most of our best memories have her in them. Linda was very close to my nephew Drew, 6 male. Drew is disabled and autistic, so he has a hard time connecting to other people. I don't know how to describe the relationship between Drew and Linda. They just sort of clicked. From the moment he was born, she was his best friend and would often watch him over. Sadly, Linda passed away at the end of January after she was hit by a drunk driver. They were still together when that happened. The entire family was devastated and we are still mourning her. Drew took it especially hard, since he doesn't really grasp what death means yet. He constantly asks where Linda is and when she'll be coming back, sometimes going as far as having full-blown meltdowns because he misses her so much. He is currently attending therapy to learn how to process his grief, but it's a slow progress. Drew's birthday is in 2 weeks, and my sister and brother-in-law sent out invitations to everyone in the family asking who can come. Birthdays are a big deal in our family and are usually an over-the-top event with catering, so it's necessary to confirm the number of guests. Apparently, Ron wrote that he'll come with Gia, a new girlfriend he's hoping to introduce to the family. And now most of the family is angry at him for moving on so quickly. I personally think it's none of my business, and I'm not going to tell him what to do or how to live his life. However, bringing a new partner over to his nephew's birthday when he knows how said nephew was so attached to his ex and is still mourning her is idiotic at best, and cruel at worst. Brother-in-law told Ron that if he's planning on bringing that girl over for Drew's birthday, he shouldn't bother coming at all. Ron called me to complain, And I told him the same thing. He shouldn't bring her over. Ron called me an a-hole and a bad brother. He said that he's finally happy again after Linda's death. And why is it so hard for us to accept that he moved on and support his relationship? I told him I'm happy to hear he's doing well, and I'm sure the family would someday love to meet the girl that makes him so happy. But I'm standing by my opinion that inviting her now was a dumb decision on his part, and he chose the worst possible time and place to introduce someone new to the family. Not the a-hole. An autistic kid's birthday is really not the time to be introducing new people, particularly when the kid in question hasn't even processed that Linda is gone yet. Also, Linda passed away 4 months ago, and he is already ready to introduce a new girlfriend? Well, your brother sure moved on fast. Who knows how anyone would behave when a close loved one dies? Poor bloke is probably in pieces and looking for some sort of comfort from a new relationship and his family. Not saying it's the right time to introduce her, but Christ, have some compassion for the poor man. His long-term partner died not long ago. Surely this is the time for families to be there for each other. People cope however they can. This is something I'd call a rebound. Sometimes rebounds are necessary if you can't take it anymore and need distraction, but that's just me. Had a beloved friend pass suddenly, and her husband was destroyed. Also went into a new relationship within 3 months. It didn't end well. Then had a series of back-to-back. That didn't end well. He was looking for comfort, and this was the only way he thought he could get it. It's been a long time, almost 20 years, and is finally alone for a bit. He still goes to her grave, at least weekly, and has a beer with her. There were side eyes, but I always understood. He honestly hasn't gotten over it. He just didn't know what to do, so he kept trying to replace her. Figured out that he couldn't, and began to process it. Not a-hole. I don't think your brother should be punished for finding happiness with someone new, and shouldn't be held to your family's timetable for grief. But Drew's birthday is the wrong time to introduce her to the family, given how young Drew is and how attached he was to Linda. Regardless, the autistic nephew's birthday is not the place for this.